Goodbye to 2023, welcoming 2014. 2014 was nothing but summer vibes the whole year, a lovely time. Mentally, still in 2014, NGL. 2014 really was the last time I felt fully alive, and ever since then, it's just been me floating by. Addison Rae is back taking pictures on an iPhone 5 and using Instagram filters. I had a shot for every time I heard the word indie sleaze over the past 3 months, I would be in A&E. We're about to enter the early 2010s renaissance.
I pity the step to me though, flow too clean. I'm bite by new tuxedos. Business since now later popping and buying hot Cheetos.
Okay.
Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Nice to meet you. Oh, look at my nails. Can you see they're all individual little gems? You can't see. Today we are going to be talking about the girl that is on everybody's lips at the moment, Little Miss 2014. Well, not really 2014 specifically, but just the early 2010s in general. And more specifically about the early 2010s, the fashion and trend. I was considering doing a whole entire deep dive into the year of 2014 like I have done for 2023, but then I was like, my last video was literally that, so switch it up a little. The girls and the gays need to be fed. So I decided to take a deep dive into the fashion trends of the early 2010s. Darling, they were a fever dream. So we're going to be diving into all the early 2010s trends, analyzing them, and I'm going to be making my prediction on what we may be seeing making a comeback. Also, my Substack is officially live! I know I said that in my last video that it was live, and it actually wasn't, and I just literally lied to all your faces, so the karma's coming my way, don't worry. Actually live now. So if you want to hear any more of my pop culture and fashion takes, head over to there, subscribe. I actually don't know what the correct terminology for that website is, so don't sue me if it's not subscribed. And without further ado, apply your US lip balm and let's get into this. As we all know, it is no shock horror to you that trends are moving faster than ever. If you did not know that, then I don't know, spend more than 30 minutes on the internet a day. That's the only advice I can give. Thanks to things like TikTok, micro trends come and go, to be honest, faster than the food in my fridge. I found something from... Actually, I was about to out myself, but I just need to preface this by saying that also fashion is cyclical. Fashion repeats itself, and it's usually known as the 20-year rule. Cyclical concept that every 20 years or so, the trends that were once popular will begin to be on the forefront again. Although, with the rise in social media, the trend cycle is being cut shorter and shorter. As much as we're about to head into the 2010s renaissance, obviously chronologically, that means we're coming out the back end of the 2000 renaissance, aka the Y2K era. I would sort of pinpoint the beginning of this around the COVID-19 lockdown era when people were oozing for a sense of nostalgia and the sort of fashion trends came to a halt. Vividly remember in lockdown, bling ring becoming a hot topic of conversation. Juicy Couture was having its comeback around about 2020 before they did a collection for Urban Outfitters and ruined their entire brand's legacy. But that, I could sit here and speak about that for 20 minutes alone. Obviously that spiraled into what we have sort of seen the mainstream fashion landscape look like over the past few years, particularly in the realm of fast fashion. Miniskirts, thongs hanging out the top of trousers and thongs sewn into the top of trousers. Asymmetry in fashion. As I mentioned, the Juicy Couture comeback. Also, side note, my one main gripe was Saltburn. I really can't be asked to sit here and talk about Saltburn. Everybody either has to say that Saltburn was the most shocking thing they ever seen and film their reaction as if they are watching Silence of the Lamb, or they need to say, if you think Saltburn was shocking, you're a fucking little virgin little loser. I said I wasn't going to talk about Saltburn, but here I am. But what I wanted to say about Saltburn was, why, if it was set in 2006, did someone in the opening scene have on Juicy Couture? But it was. And trust me, to the untrained eye, this could have gone past. Urban Outfitters, Juicy Couture. This was like minutes into the film and it deeply unsettled me and left me with uncomfortable viewing because it was just a thought at the back of my head for the entire film. We also saw the comeback of low-rise jeans, cowboy boots, baby tees, logomania, and that god-awful Urban Outfitters belt that everybody decided to start wearing. And as much as it affected fashion, of course, cyclical trends affect all forms of media. We've been seeing it heavily in music with the plaguing of sampling. As we all know, as every new Music Friday comes around, there seems to be about 3 interpolations of a song that was popular in the early 2000s. And we've also seen a lot of nostalgia bait with artists such as Tate McRae, Flo, and Victoria Monet. Other areas of aspects it affected was film. We've just seen the recent reboot of Mean Girls. iCarly and Zoe 101 got their reboot. Lizzie McGuire did a collaboration with ColourPop. It also took a take on high fashion. We saw the comeback of brands like Diesel and D Squared. Blue Marine was very heavily Y2K inspired. In particular, the butterfly top that was seen on many people. And Dua Lipa for Versace was like TikTok and Y2K threw up all over it. I would like to think we're coming to the end of this. I feel like Pink Pantheress is really like phasing this out, do her thing and we leave it there. I feel like Pink Pantheress aesthetic is more the late 2000s rather than the early 2000s. But it seems to be that we are weaning towards the end of this and Y2K and a lot of the fashion trends that I just mentioned are now viewed as chuggy. It's no longer the it thing to wear cowboy boots, to wear Juicy Couture. And as I mentioned, fashion is cyclical, which means what comes next? The 2010s 2010s. The traces have already been littering if you've been on social media recently. I mentioned Addison Rae is devouring that 2014 aesthetic. Vogue has been writing articles about how indie sleaze is back, and I know indie sleaze isn't specifically the 2010s, but we saw the resurgence of indie sleaze in 2010s through Tumblr. And we've seen fashion it girls like Devon Lee Carlson being heavily inspired. It's been sporting Boy London. Not only that, but all the tweets that I mentioned at the start of the video, there seemed to be this longing for 2014 in specific. There's been a plethora of viral TikToks in the past weeks, months, of teenagers romanticizing being a teenager in 2014, being like, gosh, imagine being able to go to the One Direction Where We Are tour, doused in Victoria's Secret body spray with an EOS lip balm in my satchel. So the evidence on social media is apparent that the longingness and nostalgia for the 2010s is already here. But are we really all about to be wearing geek t-shirts, American Apparel disco pants, and Jeffrey Campbell Lita boots? I don't know. Before we get into the trends themselves, I want to paint out a little bit of the landscape of the early 2010s. The fashion industry / the world in general was recovering from the Great Recession in the late 2000s. As I was speaking about the Y2K trends earlier, it was a lot of miniskirts, rhinestones, designers, logomania. It was an extremely flashy time for fashion. And going into the 2010s, due to the state the economy was in, we sort of saw the opposite of that. Christina Binkley, who covered fashion for the Wall Street Journal, said, "People were dripping in gold, there was bling on clothing, jewelry, accessories. Fashion had really been loud and it was a huge party. And then that shifted literally overnight. The wealthier shoppers, obviously, of course, were still buying designer, but there was a huge pushback specifically towards high-end fashion about featuring clothes with heavy logos on. And more subtle designs gained respect. It was seen very distasteful to sort of being laden in designer goods or to have a bag with Louis Vuitton or Gucci monograms all over. And there was even rumors that Hermes allowed shoppers to be able to carry a plain brown shopping bag instead of their usual bright orange one due to customers feeling self-conscious about walking home with such a flashy bag. Whether the rumors are true or not, didn't matter. It was suddenly so uncool to look rich. And it saw people like Phoebe Philo really come to the forefront in fashion as she took over as the creative director at Celine, overseeing the designs between 2008 and 2018 and taking the brand down a much more understated and normcore look. Still very expensive though, don't get me wrong. But it's sort of, and I hate using that word, wear quiet luxury, not of course stemmed from, but is case evident and point here. People in charge of these brands like Phoebe Philo wanted to create a design where it was like, your everyday person wouldn't look at it and be like, that is very tacky and distasteful, but the girls who know. Also, off the back of this, the vibe around secondhand and thrifting completely flipped. Before, it was almost seen embarrassing to shop secondhand. I remember there was a whole scene in Glee where people were bullied for thrifting, and now the girlie's entire wardrobe are from Depop and Vinted. But this all started sort of here because people were no longer able to afford named labeled goods. As a result, started shopping at things like charity and thrift shop. It was very important to note the rise of social media, which was a big impact on the fashion of this generation. Add to the early 2010s, obviously the internet was a thing, obviously social media was a thing, but it was mainly used as a way to contact friends. I mean, there was a slight sort of small community of online fashion bloggers. You wouldn't really use social media outside of if you were sat on your computer at home. The only time you would log on to sites like MySpace and Facebook and Bebo and blogs and forums was when you were sat at home with free time. You were looking at spending a hugely reduced amount of time on social media compared to how much time you were spending in the 2010s once everybody had their hands on iPhone and 3G and social media began really taking place on apps rather than desktop websites, constantly online, being inspired by other people. But not only that, you were able to share a lot more of your life a lot quicker. The fact that you were able to take a picture of your outfit while you were out and upload it straight away instead of, collating a group of images that you were then going to upload to a Facebook album with a Cher Lloyd lyric as the Facebook title. I'm not talking from personal experience, no. There was also a huge rise of new social medias. These included websites and apps like Instagram, Tumblr, We Heart It, Pinterest, and these online spaces were curating internet celebrities. Again, internet celebrities existed in the past. You were looking at your MySpace famous people. They were famous for things like music or being outlandish, but sort of the everybody celebrity was coming up as a rise at the early 2010s to the oversaturation of not only social media apps, but social media users. These new websites and the rise of the amount of people on these websites allowed for a lot of different subcultures to form online, and it allowed sort of unique aesthetics which wouldn't be shown in the 2000s media such as magazines and stuff get a spotlight for a far larger audience and spread a lot further, which would result in the 2010s fashion aesthetic to be a lot more jumbled up than previous years because people were allowed to form their very own opinions for the first time, and instead of reading a magazine or watching a TV show and being told this is cool, this isn't cool, suddenly had this huge access to way more people, way more fashion styles, and way more different people's opinions that weren't people who were just writing for a magazine, which is why when we go into these 2010 trends, they're a mess. Can't look at the 2010s and give like a succinct roundup. I'm sure 2000s, of course, there was different subcultures as well, but due to there not being as much social media, these weren't as popularized as they were in the 2010s. Anyway, now we've been given the backstory on how these 2010s trends were looking. Let's get into this. General theme of fashion in this time, as I said, there was no overall aesthetic or overarching themes. There was a lot of business casual. Women's fashion was a lot more covered up than the 2000s. Particularly in the early 2010s, it was heavily inspired by the late 80s and the 90s. Some general trends which were very common across a lot of different people. Jeans got higher. Went from belly and thongs out to, baby girl, they were up to the nipples like Simon Cowell on X Factor. Topshop really popularized this trend with the Joni jean, and also the jeans got a lot skinnier. In the 2000s, we were looking at flares, we were looking at boot cups, and then all of a sudden, baby, we were getting sucked in. One thing about the 2010s, although they weren't flashy with logo mania, they loved a motif. Instead of like how in the 2000s, where we saw a lot of Louis Vuitton logos and Gucci logos repeated everywhere, this would be sort of replicated, but with things such as mustaches and crucifixes and fucking owls for some reason, like twit to woo. I don't know what chokehold mustaches had on us, but you would be able to get mustache leggings, mustache t-shirts, mustache jumpers, mustache bags, glasses, which had mustaches hanging down, mustache jewelry, t-shirts which said, I mustache you a question. An extremely popular tattoo in the early 2010s would be to get a mustache on your finger, so you were able to go like this with a mustache. Do I think these mustaches will be coming back? I do think in a slight sense. I really think that all the girls who had their mustaches on their finger in the early 2010s and completely have regretted it for the past 5 years, hold on to that regret and do not book in that laser removal appointment just yet, girl, because your time is nigh. But I don't think we'll be seeing mustaches to the full effect. Speaking of mustaches, this was sort of deemed as a hipster trend. Hipsters were viewed as people. Hipsters were basically what, like, you know how people nowadays will be like, you're woke!
You're woke.
You're a snowflake. Hipsters seem to love coffee and non-dairy milk because that was controversial in the early 2010s. Would often wear thick framed glasses. And if you want to guess if they're coming back, let me tell you, these are not prescriptions. In the 2000s, it was very thin, sleek glasses. They often worked as a coffee shop because they were lazy and didn't want to get a proper job. A lot of bright colors would be used. In particular, I can think of things like triangle bikinis, which were a very popular bikini style. I do think that this will be coming back, so if you've got those in your wardrobe, hang on to them. Speaking of bright colors, and I mentioned the chaotic patterns, there was also a very heavy thing on flags. You had American flag shorts, American flag shoes. Again, speaking of busyness, statement necklaces were a huge thing. Suspenders, for some reason, everybody loved. I do think this may come back. And I'm terrified for when it comes back. I've got a lot of S's here. We've had statement necklace, we had suspenders, we also had a huge amount of stripes, had shutter shades, which was popularized by Kanye West and was viewed at every single under 18 club night. And we had my favorite trend in the general theme, one that I think will be making its biggest comeback. It was studs. Studded leather jackets, studded shorts, studded bags, studded shoes. Studs were everywhere. And I'm sorry, I think studs are see you next Tuesday. Going into more specifically, and I don't know if this is technically specifically British, but I call it British trends because, in fact, British, shock horror. And I remember like growing up, the 2010s, I am 24 in the year of 2024. As much as I was like conscious, like and awake and not just like goo goo gaga ring, I didn't have the maybe money funds or the confidence to be able to wear what I wanted. Yeah. But I was still conscious enough to intake what was going on and what was cool. But I don't know if these trends were as big in America. So this section is called British Trends. Paul's Boutique was the SHIT. Cher Lloyd was not on a retainer from Paul's Boutique, and whoever was managing her completely fumbled the bag. Topshop was the it brand over here in the UK. It really saw its peak, and I have planned the rise and fall of Topshop for a video. So if you're into that, let me know in the comments because that will kick me up my ass to finish it if I see the interests there. Topshop was very popularized for their geek and nerd top. It had this sort of plain zip up, and I know you might be like, Lewis, it's a plain zip up, like, girl, that's not a trend. But the shape and silhouette, you could tell if it was a Topshop one or if it wasn't, and if it wasn't, you are not it. As I mentioned, they popularized the Joni jeans, but also the whole entire sort of denim was extremely popular. Like, if you wanted jeans, you are going to Topshop. Boy London was a huge brand over here, which, as I mentioned, Devin Lee Carlson was wearing, and this will 1000 be making a comeback. Brands like Hollister, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Superdry were extremely popular. I've already seen this begin to come back, especially the Abercrombie, like, joggers were, like, wide-legged at the bottom and sort of that really thick material. Let me tell you right now, get to Vinted right now because people are selling them, and within the next year, the Depop girlies will be hiking up the prices of those. And also a slightly riff of the statement necklace. Peter Pan collars were a huge thing. I do think that this was popular not just in the UK but everywhere, but I specifically tie it with the UK because Zoella was the founding father of Peter Pan collars in my mind. Moving on to the Tumblr-inspired trend, I think it's important to note here that Tumblr was curated to become, I'm pretty sure, a fashion blog. Being a thing for years before 2010. When I say Tumblr-inspired trends, don't get me wrong, I know that there were things that were popularized by Tumblr prior to this, but if I say it was a Tumblr-inspired trend, I'm talking about the peak of Tumblr, which I say is 2012 to 2015. Tumblr was really a good incubator for what I mentioned earlier about the subsections of fashion because there was a plethora, and that is a whole nother video. In fact, Modern Girls did a really good video where they went into all the specific subsections of Tumblr, so if you want any more 2010s nostalgia, go watch that video. But I'm not going to go into all the different subcategories of Tumblr. I'm just going to speak about the overarching trends of Tumblr. As I've already mentioned, motif leggings were popular, but specifically on Tumblr, crucifix leggings were the SHIT. These will be coming back, mark my words. Muscle tees with bralettes, particularly on celebrities like Miley Cyrus, were very popular. Huge, low scooping, like sort of band muscle tees, but you'd wear a bralette underneath. They were bridging the line of femininity and masculinity, darling. Acid wash was very popular when it came to denim. Acid wash jeans, jackets, shorts. I'm not a huge fan of this. And on the other end of acid wash, you had holographic everything. I believe this sort of originated with holographic bags, and as soon as Tumblr got its hand on it, it spiraled into holographic skirts, shoes, holographic makeup. American Apparel was the Sugar Honey Iced Tea. Of course, they had their infamous disco pants. They didn't popularize, but the main place that you would buy tennis skirts would be from American Apparel. It had this very distinct geometric print, and geometric print was its whole trend, but you could tell the specific print from American Apparel. And they had the infamous letter t-shirt, which I did in fact own in big L, little L, all thanks to Zoella. This Zoella outfit with the disco pants and the letter T will be ingrained in my brain for years to come. If you own anything from American Apparel, let me tell you right now, hold on to it because she's coming back. However, holographic and my next one that I was about to say, galaxy print leggings were like, for some reason, a thing. I think if you have the holographic and galaxy print, this may not be making a comeback and you're good to give that to charity. Beanies also became a huge thing. There was the Calm the Fuck Down, which became very popular due to the opium aesthetic, and ASAP Rocky. Just beanies in general with like little slogans like Bad Hair Day. They were very popular and I could probably see them coming back. They were the sort of early 2010s like general aesthetics that you'd see on Tumblr, but there was also the specific Tumblr aesthetic, which this picture needs to be hung in the Louvre, but it perfectly describes the aesthetic I'm talking about. The girls who at least made their personality about two of the following three things, Lorde, Effie Stoneham, or Arctic Monkeys, they would fall into this category. Oversized flannels, mom jeans. This specific group was very heavily inspired by the 80s and thrifting, and I think it was that sort of longing to be different from everyone else. God, that sounded kind of shady. Don't get me wrong, I looked up to these people wishing that I was an ounce like them. You saw a lot of stripes, a lot of roll necks, and if you did not finish off this outfit with a cigarette and a Doc Marten, then you may as well log out of your Tumblr account. It was a sort of an iteration of indie sleaze, I guess. Not quite, but sort of. This 2022 Vogue article was written that this sort of style was materialized through music and girlish rebellion, which I think sort of harbors itself back to the things that I was saying about wanting to be different. The final part of subsection of this Tumblr era was the swag era. Think swag notes. It was heavily inspired by like New York style and the rap and hip hop scene. Snapbacks were a humongous thing. Obey was the sort of it brand. Chicago Bulls sweatshirts were huge. Snooki sort of, I don't know as much of, I don't know because I'm not American, so I don't know if the jersey aesthetic was sort of replicated in the real life, but we've already seen all the girls and Ego Official making their fast fashion, hideous, disgusting knockoffs of the original Snooki fur boots, so it's safe to say that that one's already back too. The Tumblr trends that I previously spoke about were kind of what teenagers / people at a push in their early 20s were mainly wearing. People in their 20s / early 30s, the most common dress sense was business casual. Like the girls would be stepping out for the day and you would not be able to tell if that girl was heading to the club or a meeting at the United Nations. Andrew Groves, professor of fashion design at the University of Westminster, said, "At times of economic downturn, high employment, and an uncertain future, we adopt a far more traditional and formal approach to what we wear." As I mentioned, we were coming out the back of the recession, so there is no wonder that the people who are actually, not wasting their time on the internet and working in jobs started dressing like this. We saw a lot of blouses, chiffon, gaiter skirts. It was a lot more modest compared to the low-rise and sort of scandalous style of the 2000s. Peplum was very common, bodycon dresses, pencil skirts, heels with skinny jeans, fitted blazers. If you can think of what people would wear to the office, the girls were not just wearing it to the office, they were also wearing peplum and court shoes to Prism nightclub. I believe that we've already seen the resurgence of this already because, as we all know, we're in a cost of living crisis, and the effect that COVID-19 had on the economy has already meant that girl, we're fucked. So if we were to take what Andrew Groves said as verbatim, we're already seeing the effects of this, and I think that we're seeing this sort of business casual repackaged to us as clean girl aesthetic, but the girls who would dress like this in the 2010s would be deemed as girl boss, and I just think that we're not gonna see the exact same replica of peplum and pumps and court shoes and skinny jeans with fitted blazers, but instead we've seen that harbor in the clean girl aesthetic with slick back hair, heavily inspired by brands like Ganni, loafers, knitwear, minimal makeup, and understated jewelry. It has that same sort of professional look, but just in a 2020 landscape. The footwear was heels. Anything and everything was heel. Wedges in particular were huge. It even got to the point where there was the heelless shoe. And I'm just waiting for a brand to replicate this. The shoe or the designer heel of choice was the Valentino stud heel. And when it came to even trainers, the trainers were wedged too. Isabel Marant became the trainer of choice. And I've already seen the girls salivating over them. So there's your go ahead for that coming back. Not only were we healing our trainers, we were also healing our boots. Jeffrey Campbell became extremely popular with their Lita boots to the point that they became completely ripped off, but you could get over 100 different versions of the Jeffrey Campbell Lita boots, and as evidence and point of those earlier trends I said, you would be able to get the Lita boots not only in studs, but also in American flag print. Not to go round in circles, but the reason why everything was heeled was that it's a very common phrase that the higher the heels, the lower the economy. There is a common correlation, height of women's shoes increase during an economic crisis. Usually in an economic downturn, heels go up and stay up, as consumers turn to more flamboyant fashions as a means of fantasy and escape. So I would not be surprised if we saw the comeback of heels in our everyday wear. And as I said, we've already seen the Isabel Marant shoes come back. I just want to give a little bit of a motif to 2017 because the way that trends are moving so fast, it'll be a couple months until we start seeing the return of King Kylie eras. So to run you down the 2017 fashions as a whole, the makeup turned into full glam. You would spend hours and hours on your makeup. Thick eyebrows, cut crease, matte lips, overlined lips, heavy highlighter, heavy contour. Chokers were the accessories of choice. I'm talking diamante chokers, velvet chokers, tattooed chokers. In terms of footwear, the heels were mainly knee-high boots. Trainers became a lot more popular, specifically Adidas Superstars. There's a lot of suede going on. Band tees, oversized, particularly worn as dresses, were extremely popular. Bomber jackets were the jackets of choice. Camo became popular again, and brands like Off-White became extremely popular. It was a lot more flashy and name brands, and I think the flexing culture on YouTube added a lot to the fashion sense of teens. But I don't think we're quite there yet at seeing that come back. However, if you want to go about with a cut crease and a matte lip, I will fully salute you because I would love to see that. The reason why I feel like we're already reminiscing on 2014 is because of the pace that trends are moving. And I feel like the fast pace of the way that trends are moving, not only because of fast fashion and TikTok, as everybody also says, but I also think it's down to the dilution of fashion. Is dilution a word? I've just made dilute into dilution, but that could very much not be a word. The process of how trends were formed used to be a lot slower. Designers would showcase their looks at fashion months. Editors and journalists would go back and report about the specific trends which kept coming up in multiple shows. Weeks or months later, celebrities would then be spotted on red carpets sporting these looks which were seen on the runway. So you were starting to see these trends that the magazines were reporting on in real life. Point and evidence, which then meant once the magazines given it a tick and the celebrities gave it a tick, mid-tier and low-tier top-tier fashion brands would start recreating it and pumping it out to the masses, and the vast majority of everybody else would eventually catch on, and that process would take like a year. Nowadays, it's a lot more mixed due to social media. I think that it comes from a lot of the rise of the everybody celebrity. People like influencers and content creators being invited to sit front row at fashion shows. So, your celebrities nowadays, whether you like to say it or not, your top-tier influencers are celebrities. They are household names in Gen Z households. But people shy away from calling these influencers celebrities because these influencers got their status from being relatable and personal to their audience. So these audience view these people as not celebrities, but their friends. But also at the same time, these high fashion brands know the pull that these influencers have because of that relationship they have with their audience, which the traditional singers and actors and sort of every other genre of celebrity compared to their fans, there's this sort of barrier and this sort of fans view them as holier than thou. Whereas influencers and their fans, there's this sort of murky water where, as I said, they got their start because they're just like them. So they have a much stronger and tight-knit trust with their audience. So of course it's great marketing. They know they're not quite the direct target audience, but it's a good way to sort of spread the word. Obviously not everybody views that as black and white as that, but as a generalization, that is the sort of common thing. And on top of that, as I said, anybody can be an influencer. As I mentioned, trends are cyclical, so if you can put fucking 2 and 2 together, the best way to be ahead of the trend is to jump forward a couple years. For example, we're coming out the back of end of Y2K. That is why you're seeing Devin Carlson wearing Boy London and Addison Rae using an iPhone and Instagram filters like it's 2014. Obviously gone back, checked the calendar app on their phone, gone, 2010s are next coming after Y2K, so why don't we start wearing it now so we're ahead of the curve? But in turn, that just speeds up the whole entire process to the point where we are no longer in a 20-year cycle and more of a 10-year cycle. And finally, on this point, the rise of fast fashion brands such as Shein, Boohoo, Misguided, Pretty Little Thing. They have such unethical turnover rates that Kylie Jenner is able to wear a dress on the Monday and it's on their website by the Friday, which again completely blurs the line. You know how I went back and said that back 20 years ago, people would wait until a celebrity wore a trend for it to have its stamp of approval, but then it would take a long time for that to be manufactured and actually reach the real world. Nowadays, a celebrity will wear something and you're able to wear it next day delivery by the end of the week, which means that the turnover rate for celebrities to be able to dress in a way that not everybody else is dressing moves a lot faster than it used to. But more specifically, is 2014 any special? Is there any specific reason why we all latched onto 2014? No, it is just the nostalgia kicking in. Ione Gamble, founder of Polyester Magazine, which was founded in 2014 when she was just 20 years old, so she was there to live it. She said that there was nothing special about 2014, girl. Instagram wasn't commercialized yet, so it felt like there was more freedom and possibilities in the online spaces. However, we are literally talking about platform changes, which I do not think signals much about culture. But she raised a very good point that people may long for 2014 in specific because it was one of the last few years before the world went to shit, I guess. It was the last period before Brexit, before the Conservative Party went extremely far right. It was also pre-Trump, pre-Brexit, and pre-pussy hats. So feminism wasn't as commodified, and the possibilities seemed infinite. I don't think 2014 was particularly special. Life just became grim in 2016. Also, myself, particularly, but I guess you, if you're watching this video, consume a lot of media created by Gen Z. And 2014 is the first era or first year that Gen Z are able to feel nostalgia for. It's the first era that we were like properly fully aware of the world and what was going on, in this case, particularly media and fashion trends. So it's very easy for us to completely jump on this and be like, I miss it! Anyway, you heard it here first about the 2010 trends, which I personally predict will be making a comeback, and my general consensus of why we are longing so hard for 2014 in particular. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you very soon for a brand new video. Bye!